All right, first of all, one thing that really annoyed me was why does Rory Cochrane look so much like fucking I think his name is Adrian Grenier or whatever, the guy from uh Entourage.
Entourage.
Yeah,
Who
it's
looks
like
like him?
or maybe I don't know if it's Rory Cochrane, but the main like the one of the main guys from Empire, like the
Oh
one
yeah,
who like gambled all the money away. He's like
yeah,
that guy mixed with Jordan Knight. Like it was just weird. Like why are you confusing me? This is annoying.
yeah. Well, it's funny because like that dude hasn't done a whole lot,
No. And he
but
was
I
actually one
just
of the
saw
best
him in
parts of the movie.
something. I just saw him in something recently, like within the last like 3 months. Like I think within the last time we talked about Empire, when I watched Empire, um, he was on something like right after that, and I was like, "Holy shit, that's Lucas!"
And you know what's funny actually? What I think is really cool. Um, the other guy, one of the guys from Empire, is like one of the main guy from Can't Hardly Wait. I wonder if it's Johnny Whitworth. No, it's not Johnny. Who is it?
Is it Ethan Embry?
That sounds right. Yeah. Nothing. Whatever happened to him too? Because I think
He's
he
been
maybe
around. He was just on Grace and Frankie on Netflix. That's the one with Lily Tomlin and
now I'm
Martin
wondering if I've got
Sheen.
this
And
wrong. Because I don't see Ethan Embry in the cast here in Empire. So maybe I'm just getting that he maybe looks like Ethan, but it's not Ethan.
no, Ethan Embry is the stoner kid.
Okay, then I guess they didn't list him then in this Wikipedia
No, he
article.
was yeah. Let me look it up on
IMDb.
his. Yeah, I'm totally slipping on his character's name, which pisses me off. Mark,
You're right. You're
Mark with
right. No, it says here,
Mark with a C. Yeah.
Yeah, Embry's character bounding down the stairs from the store is locked. So yeah, so I guess yeah. So Ethan Embry, like I love how like there wasn't necessarily a Brat Pack in the '90s, but there sort of was. And another movie I need to fucking watch, and this is why we're gonna have fun with this one, is because I never ever saw 10 Things I Hate About You. Or not 10 Things. Is that what it's called? Or
Oh, that's yeah. No, no. Well, 10 Things I Hate About You. Is that what it's called?
that's
Shit. No,
because I know it's supposed to
I
be
think
a
so.
Shakespeare thing.
Yeah, 10
Like,
Things I Hate About You. Heath Ledger, Julia Stiles, right?
yeah. And it's funny because Heath Ledger and fucking JGL, they look and Angela so they all like have the same kind of beady-eyed look. It was almost like annoying to me. Like, why are they all the same? Anyway, but yeah, so I gotta fill that gap in too. The '90s was is a bit of a fucking late '90s movies, man. And my hypothesis is it all started with Clueless. I think that's what like
That's
opened the
fair.
because
That's
that was
fair.
'95 with Amy
Yeah.
Heckerling, who did fucking Fast Times a decade before,
Hmm.
and we're all
Yeah,
seen it, so we
yeah.
all remember this shit. Till I
Yeah, yeah.
hear it from you.
Now, it's been a minute, excuse me, since I've seen 10 Things I Hate About You. Like that one's funny because Larissa Olenek is in it, and she seemed like she was going to be it for a minute. Like she was on Nickelodeon. What was her show on Nickelodeon? Alex Mack, Secret World of Alex Mack. And she was like super cool. She was cute. She was everything, and then she just kind of disappeared. She was in something recently again. Like she's one of those ones that kind of popped up again recently,
Yeah,
but for a long time, like she just was gone. What did I just see her in?
I'm looking now. Well, she was
Oh,
on the
she was
Alex
on
Jones movie,
she was on Mad Men, Pretty Little Liars.
and you know who
Maybe I'm
else?
thinking she was an episode of Psych. Maybe that's what I thought she was in.
So I was talking to a friend who else actually like was that dude for a second, then disappeared, but now is back, I guess, as a dad. Um, fucking Scott Wolf. I feel like that
Oh,
one
he
show.
was just in something.
Yes, the Nancy
What was
Drew
he in?
stories or whatever. Right, that's why I
Oh,
saw
is that
him,
what he's in?
and he's a main cast member. But because when I
Oh,
saw him in Go, it's like, dude, he is so Tom Cruise, and it's funny how Doug Lyman has ended up working with Tom Cruise twice. First with Day After Tomorrow, than some other fucking movie in 2017 that didn't really do anything. But apparently, they're doing a movie in space, and Tom and Doug Lyman are flying to space on this next mission.
Yes.
Yeah, you heard about
Yes.
this? Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, so it's, I feel like after he worked with him on Go on with Scott Wolf, he's like, man, why am I working with this budget Tom Cruise? Let me get the real guy.
You know,
Um,
what's funny is I started Go, I only got like 15 minutes into it.
you were the fucking
Um,
man. Thank you.
it definitely, at least in the beginning, does not have my attention almost at all. Like I'm not interested in any of the characters or anything.
Oh no.
But there was a shot of Scott Wolf, and I was like, dude, I could totally, especially in the 90s, have seen him playing a Clark Kent character in
Okay.
some show. Like just like the shape of his face, the hair color, all that. Like I could have seen him as a 90s Clark Kent Superman, in the same way that they did something with Dean Cain, right? Like I don't think it would have been on the level of,
Yeah.
Superman and Lois like we have now or anything like that. Um, but
He had that
yeah,
superhero vibe. He was
yeah,
probably too short. It's probably what it was.
that'll do it,
It'll do it. But it's
especially
crazy.
for Superman.
Yes. It was crazy how though that Party of Five, every single motherfucker on that show, as far as the main cast, went on to do something. Like that's a great track record.
Yeah,
With
yeah.
Matthew Fox being the last one to break out.
Oh, that's what I've been watching. I'm not done with it, but I started Last Light on Peacock. It is a 5-episode miniseries with Matthew Fox.
Boom. That was
Yeah, yeah,
that's some synchronicity for
yeah,
that ass.
yeah.
Just I brought that up.
Yeah, yeah. I'm so like we got there on accident. But yeah, no, that's the, like I knew there was something I was watching. I couldn't get there. Welcome to the All Pop No Culture podcast. I'm your host this week, Kevin. I am joined again by Andrew. Pete is out again this week. For some reason, his wife has stayed with him for 20 years, so obviously that's a reason to celebrate. She probably should have left years ago. I would have, but good on him for whatever he's, drugging her with. She thinks he's okay. Andy is once again doing the dad thing. The guy's got homecoming this week. So, hopefully he's not chaperoning. I'm sure he's probably not allowed within 100 yards of the dance, but that's fine. And then Kim swore up and down she was going to join us. And then, I don't know, her boyfriend said something romantic, and now they're doing things that we can't really talk about on the show. But hopefully they're tired by now. Well, no, I guess it's only 9 o'clock there. So give them a couple more hours. Let them get their exercise in. So it's just the two of us again this week, just like last week. And we have a shorter roster of things to talk about. But I think to kick us off, Mr. Andrew is going to take us on a little time machine journey, take us in his Wayback Machine, because he got into a 90s groove this week. So I'll let you take it away, man.
All right. Well, I think one of the cool things about, being in a collaborative kind of collective is that, in between these shows, we have this little text group between the five of us rather. And for some reason, a 1999 film called Can't Hardly Wait was brought up in the discussion. I remember that movie with Jennifer Love Hewitt and I guess this guy named Ethan Embry. But in that discussion, the movie Empire Records came up, and I remember that film, as in not having seen it, but knowing about the soundtrack, and basically hearing from the people that I hung out with that my freshman year, first quarter, that the movie was horrible, but the soundtrack was amazing. I was then, I wouldn't say like savaged, but I definitely felt a little attacked, like because they were like, "Yo, like you haven't seen this movie? Like, let's like that's a major hole in your viewing history." So me, I have a little bit of an ego, so I'm like, fine, like only let me not be ignorant and like watch this movie. So I watched Empire Records this morning, and I gotta say that like I didn't get it. Like I definitely was happy when it was over. Okay, like I was like I don't get this movie. Like this is not for me, and like this is why I never saw it in the first place. But but I did make a connection between Empire Records and another much more recent work of fiction called She-Hulk. And that connection was the following. When a movie or a work of art, is really authentic to the spirit of a certain kind of mindset or vibe, the mainstream might not get it, but those who it's speaking to might really cling to it. It's because it's authentic. And I think that's what Empire Records is. It's a vibe. It's about, these folks who are really kind of anti-corporate, and they're very indie oriented, indie spirited. It's like save Empire Records, damn the man. We wear our tattoos. We don't like Whitney Houston. We don't like Dr. Dre. Like we're all about that kind of counterculture of the '90s type stuff. Just like She-Hulk is very, you know, I hate to use the word woke, but that's kind of like what it is, and both works of art don't really have like a narrative per se. I mean, there is a narrative, but it's not really not a lot that happens. It's just more of a vibe. And that's why I wanted to talk about this film, because frankly, when I posted a link about the movie on my Facebook page, I did see some reactions from people that I know, and these weren't just like lukewarm reactions. These were enthusiastic, quotes from the movie reactions. So, I'll say one more thing before I end this kind of long-winded rant here. The reason why I watched this movie is because I do think that there are like quote unquote love languages, right? If you've got friends and they're really big into something, part of the love language is say, look, you know what, I respect you because I'm going to watch your damn movie. So Kevin, opposite for me, through the magic of technology, is a huge fan of Empire, and he would watch it on loop if he could. So
Yeah.
all of that said, tell me and the viewers why you love Empire Records so much.
Yeah, for me, a part of it may have been because my friends loved it so much, because I didn't see it like the second it dropped, right? Like I saw it after it came out, saw it at some friend's house. And the one thing that I remember the most, and I still remember to this day, one of the reasons that I love it so much is just in the quotable lines of that movie. Like you put one into the text chat where he's like, what's with you today? Yesterday you were normal. Today you're like the Chinese guy from the Karate Kid. And then like Lucas just looks at him. He's like, what's with today? Today, like, and so it's got all these lines that the more you've seen the movie, the more they just like become a part of you. And what's crazy to me about this movie is that I'm not a Renee Zellweger fan. I'm not a Liv Tyler fan, which I get a bunch of shit from, especially from dudes. But Liv Tyler is fine, but like I've never been like her biggest fan. Like when she showed up in Lord of the Rings, I was like, okay. Um, I don't really like the main character AJ. I'm not a fan of his. Like he kind of bugs me. Or main-ish character Lucas, but I loved Lucas. I love Joe, Anthony Padua. Like I love the adults. Even when I was a teenager, I loved the adults a lot. Is it Robin Tooney? Is that
Yes, Robin Tunney, yeah, or Tootie, whatever.
And Debbie Mazart,
Mm-hmm.
and
Great
I
eyes.
fucking love them. Yeah, like I love them, and so I don't know, man. There's just a lot of stuff that I loved about it because of the people I was watching it with, because it was our thing. Like it became a thing that we all watched and quoted together, and would laugh about. because it's a movie about very little. Like it happens over the course of a single day. Lucas blows the money. What where's the money? It's in Atlantic City. What's it doing? Recirculating.
Circulating.
Like all those little things. And but through the course of the day, it's all the things you bring in. I think the kid actually has done some other stuff. But you bring in shit. What was his name? The kid that stole the money. Something with a W. Not
Oh man.
Wesley.
Oh man.
Um,
Wait,
yeah, but you bring him in.
okay.
Um, and he leaves and comes back after he's been arrested. You
Oh,
know, yeah, and he's like, "What are
Warren.
you going to give me?" Warren, which isn't even his real name, right? Uh, and he's like, "Well, you want a job?" And he's like, "You going to give me a job?" Right? And so at the end, like he's working there, and like it's just, I mean, it is a ridiculous, you know, kind of plot. But it comes at the time too when, if you look historically, you were starting the end of things like Tower Records, and you were seeing the end of even or the beginning of the end for what was the music store in Berkeley, Rasputin's.
Yes.
You're seeing the end of these stores that were like this, that were legitimately like this, where the employees were a bunch of screw offs, right? Like, it was more of a hang than it was a job,
It
which
was
is
almost
probably
a
ultimately why they
family.
failed. But yeah, and so um, we all had jobs kind of like that at the time, not necessarily record stores, but jobs where it was more about the people you were working with and the job you were doing. Um, and yeah, so yeah, for me, even though I love the soundtrack and it does take place in a record store, like I never really think about the music. The only musical aspect that like really drives the that drives the movie for me is the Guar scene, right? Like when he's tripping out and he sees himself on stage with Guar. But otherwise, the music is well placed, but in its own way, kind of ancillary. Like it doesn't necessarily make the movie one way or the other.
It's funny you say that because now I start to think that there might be just two audiences for this movie. Because man, okay, first of all, like, man, it's gonna be such a riff. Okay, so do you remember that movie Higher Learning? It was like John Singleton's third
Yes,
movie in
but
college.
I didn't watch it. I know that it existed, but I didn't see it.
All right, you know what? In that case, then
I
Beyond
would.
Go, I would recommend it just because it would give you a little insight into kind of my mindset and my world in like the mid 90s because like that movie did a great job, I think, of showing the different kind of social groups within college that were done along, different lines. But in any event, so I was having my little higher learning experience, but when I hear songs like Crazy Life by To the Wet Sprocket or oh man, I hated that song "A Girl Like You" by Edwin Collins. Like, never met a girl like you before.
Mhm.
Yes, I really did that on the fucking podcast. Anyway, hated that song. But there was just so many songs that were played on this like alternative radio station out in Santa Barbara. I forget what it was called, but wasn't Live 105. That's the Bay Area. Anyway, point is, they were all about that fucking soundtrack and not about the movie. Now you
Mhm.
talked about how it was about like your crew and who you worked with, not so much about the job that you had. And that wasn't my experience. So I always felt like, you know, I was the person who kind of like played by the rules. I was the person who was like, look, I've always felt for various reasons, which I'm sure you can smell, felt a bit on the outside. So for me, it was like, no, like I don't want to feel like an outsider. I felt like an outsider like all my life. So let me actually play by the rules and do that. So then I play by the rules, so to speak, and then you're still making fun of me. So for example, this Maxwell Caulfield character, right? Like what's his name? Like Rex Williams or what's the name of the guy?
Rex Manning.
Rex.
It's Rex Manning Day. You'll see it every year, man. Rex Manning Day is a thing now.
So Rex Manning, like I like pop music, okay? So it was a total lampoon. There was nobody in the mid 90s who had 70s hair, like who was a big star. So this is like an invented like bogeyman. Okay. So
Yeah.
Rex Manning to me represented, you know, someone who didn't exist. Like, I mean, literally doesn't exist because in the mid 90s, there was no pop music. It was like you had grunge and hip and gangster rap on one side because people in both like people like if you like grunge, you probably like gangster rap too, right? Then you had like R&B
Mhm.
over here, okay? Um, but as far as like pop goes, pop didn't come back till like 96, 97, 98 with like the Spice Girls breaking the first crack and then
Yeah.
bop. And then so it was like, but this is squarely 94, 95. That was like the most grungy alternative. If you're not keep it real. Remember that term, keep it real? Like it
Yeah.
was the keep it real era. So yeah, like I was talking about like throwing mud. Like, look, I'm not gonna hate on you, so don't hate on me. So I just felt like it was very kind of just it was all about dissing anything that wasn't it. So that's why I just felt kind of a certain repulsion towards it. But then at the same time, like, yeah, I'm totally ranting now. At the same time, it's like these are all people who are just figuring each other out. Like the Robin who shaved her head and like cut her wrist, like her whole thing was like, I don't know who I am. I'm just like, I don't know. It was just fucking weird. And then Anthony Pagia's character is like physically assaulting Lucas. Like that's weird. Like every time he would grab him, I'm like, this is disturbing to me. Like this is all it's abuse. Like I don't care how mad you are at somebody, you shouldn't put your hands on them, especially if it's not your fucking. I'm not saying you should beat your kid, but that's not even his fucking kid. So I don't know. That was weird to me. So like, but again, I'm not okay. I'm shitting a little bit on it, but what I'm saying is I don't get the movie, but clearly people do. And I am hoping I'm triggering some motherfuckers who are listening to this podcast right now. So you can say, Andrew, you just don't get it. It's a cult classic. Um, Even with Liv Tyler's character like falling for that dude who like she friend zone or whatever, please. Like, I don't see that
Yeah.
happening.
That
Like at
that
the
that
end,
whole bit, I never. He wanted her.
yeah,
The story works better either if you can really believe that she liked him already and just didn't know or
correct.
something, but you need to develop that. So a single day is hard to do that. It's hard to develop a relationship in the course of a day in a story. It's just not it's just not enough time. Um but yeah, like I said, it's so funny to me because there's so much about the movie that just generally speaking that I don't like a bunch of the actors, a bunch of the stuff. Um but I love the movie. Um and it's funny you put up the IMDb rating. It was 6.7, and I was like, yeah, I could see that. Like for me, like on a personal level, it's definitely higher. But if you look at I mean, there's certainly flaws with the film, right? Like it was obviously a low budget, you know, basically single location film, right? So I'm trying to remember if Liv Tyler was big yet when they filmed it.
That was her debut.
Renee Zellweger wasn't.
No.
Um,
Liv was big because of the her and Alicia
and
Silverstone
the
and all the
yeah,
Aerosmith
the music
videos. That's
video,
what it
yeah, the
was.
Aerosmith video. Well, and she's big because of her dad.
Yeah.
But um, yeah, it's you know, they did a good job with what they had, and they made a fun movie, which obviously worked. I don't know, I've never looked up its box office success,
I can tell
but
you. So basically, we're such a good team. So basically, against a $10 million budget, 10 million, it made
that's not much.
150,
Oh,
150
wow.
in its
Okay.
opening weekend. No, 150,000 over its opening weekend, and
Oh,
a
okay. Yeah, that makes
total
more
run
sense.
of 300,000 against a $10 billion budget. So it was a severe flop. You
Yeah.
were absolutely right. The screenwriter based the film on her time working in Tower Records. So there you go. And then it went into bankruptcy and closed by 2006. I love Tower Records, by the way. And Tubi, plug, to me is a Tower Records of streamers. As far as another thing, oh, Roger Ebert called the film a lost cause, but wrote that some of the actors might have a future in other better films. And he was actually right.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, no, overall, like, I mean, The mystery is over. I've heard about Empire Records. I will say that again, that damn soundtrack was everywhere in the fall of '95 at UC Santa Barbara,
Absolutely.
and I'm sure it was in lots of other college towns across the country. And amazingly, I didn't really digress or tangent off into all the other '90s movies I wanted to talk about, but I will say that we may revisit this, and the reason why is because I had also watched a little film called Go. We're not going to go into it today, but Go was the second film by director Doug Liman, who you might know did Swingers with Jon Favreau and Vince Vaughn. And let me tell you, I remember watching Go back in, I want to say, like when it was out, like 2000. And I remember liking it, but I also remember being a bit too young, believe it or not, even though I was like 23, to really get it. Whereas now I watch it and go, man, you know what it is? When I watched it, it was just a movie. Now when I watch it, it's a time capsule. And it's the '90s were a trip. I don't know if I want to go back to the '90s, but there was a certain simplicity to it. And between that and the actors themselves and the fact that this movie is kind of John Tarantino light, um, I think it's underrated, and I highly recommend people at least check it out and then give me your thoughts. And I'm so glad, Kevin, that even though you've started it, and even though you're kind of like, like no one's really grabbed me yet, I still look forward to what you think of Jay Moore, Timothy Oliphant, Katie Holmes,
It's
um,
just so, and
even
it,
Tay
and
Diggs.
yeah, I'm gonna dig into it and see what I think. It makes me laugh though, like thinking about the '90s, like, and you said it, like, or maybe you didn't, maybe you said it in the pre-show, but like, even though there wasn't a Rat Pack or a Brat Pack for the '90s, at the same time, like, right in that era, we had Ethan Embry, who was a little hot. He was doing some stuff. Seth Green was coming up. Devon Sawa was the guy that was like gonna blow up, right? And he didn't. Like, he disappeared for a long time. He was in a movie. The reason that it came up for me is that thinking about some of those '90s movies that are like Can't Hardly Wait and like that. There's one called Idle Hands,
Never saw that one.
and it's a it's a comedic horror film. Um, and it's I love it. And it's been a long time since I've seen it, so it might actually be terrible at this point. But you got Devon Sawa, Seth Green, Jessica Alba, who's another '90s it girl. Um, Vivica A. Fox is in it. That might be the end of the names that we really know. Fred Willard is in it. He's been around forever.
Yeah.
But like, if it was in the '90s and it had Devon Sawa and Seth Green in it, Seth Green was a big old part of Can't Hardly Wait.
Oh yeah.
Um, and then Jennifer Love Hewitt was like everywhere.
Probably her best.
Um, Can't Hardly Wait. It was definitely, for me, was her best. I didn't mind her in I Know What You Did Last Summer.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, Idle Hands is a lot of fun. That was very early. Jessica Alba. I didn't even realize that she was the main actress until I looked it up again. Um, but yeah, there's some movies that I don't necessarily think are probably not good movies, but kind of like Go. They're a time capsule movie where if you go and watch them and you watched them at the time, they'll take you back to that era, or because they took place in that time. Like, we're all class of '95, so if you look at '95 to 2000, that's also like adult formative years. That's like going from being a teenager to being an adult. So there's a lot tied into those few years for us as the folks on the show. Um, so it's definitely interesting.
One cool thing is
Okay.
there's a character in Go, and she looked awfully familiar. And sure enough, Melissa McCarthy, her film debut is in Go, and
Nice.
I was like, holy shit, that really is her. And
Nice.
there was Breckin Meyer, if you've ever heard of him,
Yes, Breckenmeyer.
so he's in Go
He
too.
was he was in the first um Final Destination, right?
That's another one I
No,
need to see.
that's
There's
Devon Sawa.
okay, got it.
Breckenmeyer.
But he reminds me of Seth Green as well as there's
A little
another
bit,
guy
yeah.
who there's another guy who's not Seth Green, but he's in the Scream movies. I get him and Seth Green mixed up all the time. I think he had his own show on MTV. The something something experience. Hold on a second. Scream. Let me tell you. I might tell you in a second. Um, what's his fucking name? Shit. Dude, he's the guy who like who was a horror movie expert who would tell people what not to do. Jamie Kennedy.
Mm,
So
yeah.
Jamie
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Kennedy and Seth Green, they remind me of each other, but I know they're different people. But yeah, man, it all started with Clueless. You know, I was saying earlier in the pre-show, but there's a whole bunch of like '90s films that I'm finally starting to look at the '90s with the same amount of reverence I looked at the '80s. Because in the '90s, in the early
Hmm.
2000s, I would look at the '80s films as like, okay, this is classic. So even though Amy Heckerling did Fast Times and did Clueless, I'm like, okay, Clueless is cool, but I still feel like Fast Times has a bit more gravitas than Clueless. But now I look back on the '90s stuff and go, wait, no, no, no. Like the '90s had its own identity. Like the '90s
Hmm.
was more leather, it was more slick, it was more nihilistic, maybe might be a good word for it, because I think the '80s was a lot brighter and optimistic and just like Molly, as in not like Molly, but like mall culture. Sorry, I'm a little drugged out right now. Not literally. But the '90s movies are more like, yeah, there was a certain kind of, what am I trying to say? Like, uh God,
It,
it's gonna piss me off.
it was a little grungy, to be honest. Like,
Fine. Yeah.
like 90s gave us Clerks.
Apathy. Apathy
Y-
was the word I was looking for.
Yeah,
Yeah. Apathy was a
yeah,
thing. So yeah, man. Well, that was Empire Records, baby. We can probably. I know you said you watch a few things, so I'm all ears.
yeah,
Take it away, homie.
yeah. So it took me a while to remember, but I started watching this show with one Mr. Matthew Fox, which, funny enough, he hasn't done much since Lost. He's done a few things, but nothing big. Um, and so if you watch the trailers for this on Peacock, because that's where it's showing, is on Peacock. It's a 5 episode miniseries, but the commercials are like, the return of Matthew Fox. And I was like, okay.
You really said
Like,
that?
yeah, like one of them literally is like the
Ouch.
return of Matthew Fox. But it's true. I mean, you look him up, he's done very little. Like he kind of likes it that way from what I
Okay.
understand. Like he was okay being done with acting for a while. And if you've ever watched Downton Abbey, over here, touching her nose, is she is Anna Bates from Downton Abbey.
Okay.
Um, their son is blind, which is why he's looking off into the distance in a weird way. I don't know if the actor is actually blind, but he does a fine job playing a blind kid. Um, I, I have one episode to go on it, so I'm not quite done. But the basically the premise is that one day, all of the sudden, across the globe, anything relying on petroleum energy starts to fail.
Hmm.
And what we find out as the show goes on is that someone has activated some bacteria within, um, within the oil that's deteriorating it, and so effectively destroying like the world's oil supply, because the assumption is that they're like a terrorist organization, or they want somebody to, they want to force people to use clean energy, and it's all the chaos around that. It moves pretty fast, and there's definitely some like leaps of um not faith, but like of believability, where some things just kind of happen a little too fast, or like the power was funky for like a day, and then all of a sudden, and this takes place in, half of it takes place in the UK, and half of it takes place in a Dubai like country. Um, and it's just interesting, kind of like how fast they move things along to make the show work. Like everything is martial law within, by the end of like the first day, like you can't
Hmm.
cross any borders and all this stuff. Um, and I'm not saying that's not what what or not that's not what would happen in this situation. Like if something like this was going on and it was worldwide, it'd be a little chaotic. So, but it was definitely interesting. You know, there's a couple of stretches because they're worried about everything, and yet at the same time, he can fly from Dubai to the UK on a plane that uses fuel and not have any problems. Where earlier in earlier in the episode or the episode before, they're talking about how planes are crashing because they don't have good fuel, and that's a little bit of a stretch too. Because funny enough, it's actually a line that he has as Jack in Lost, in the pilot. He looks over to Rose, the black lady, and he says, planes want to be in the air, and that's true. They're built aerodynamically so that they can stay in the air. Like all a jet engine does is make it move forward faster.
Hmm.
If a plane's engine stopped working, they're designed to glide to the ground. You're not going to have any brakes. You're not going to have the things that you want to have, in a perfect world, but they're designed to land. Now, yes, you would crash if you're in the middle of the ocean, you'd be fucked. Or, if you're over somewhere that doesn't, if you're over, a mountainside, you're probably screwed. But, generally speaking, planes are designed to land. They can land on water, not smoothly, but they can land on water. They had that whole Sully movie about that, or sorry, Sully was real, right?
Yeah.
That happened in the Hudson River, right?
Yep.
So like these things are all possible, but it's interesting, and the acting is great. Like it's really good. I'm really hoping it has a solid ending because it's only 5 episodes. It's 5 episodes. It's a mini series. There's no indication that it'll get a second season. And I don't know if by the time I get to the end, if there will be a point for a second season. Like if they're titling it as a mini series, that tells me they're good. Like this is the story we want to tell. We got the actor we wanted, and they did it. So I'm curious to see the ending for sure. It's got was he the faceless man? Is that what they called him in the original Game of Thrones?
I like
He
him.
that trained
And he's
Arya.
also in Stranger Things as well. He's a good actor.
Yeah. So it's got him. I don't think I really recognize anybody else. It's definitely most of the actors are British because it primarily takes place in the UK.
Kimmel, like
yeah, I love the girl from Downton Abbey. I loved her on Downton Abbey. So she's great. But yeah, I would say give it a shot if you have Peacock. Some people don't know, but if you have Comcast, Peacock is free. The app is built into your cable box. You have the cable box. If you have a subscription to any kind of Comcast cable, you can just sign into Peacock with your Comcast login. So apparently I'm plugging Comcast today, but there's commercials and stuff in it if you have the Comcast version. Like you can pay for Peacock if you want, I think, and get no commercials, but it's free with Comcast. So that's cool. And then the other thing that I watched, I don't know if it was this week or last week, but I was talking to our buddy Opie, who was the original, one of our original hosts. And many times on the show in the past, we talked about the show Letterkenny, which is the 10th season is currently on Hulu. All 10 seasons are currently on Hulu. It's almost like Always Sunny in the way that you can watch it. Like it goes by so fast. The episodes are like 22 minutes long. You just absolutely burn through them. You can burn through a season in a couple of days. Seasons aren't long. The episodes are short. To a degree, to use the term you use, it's definitely a vibe show. Like it's about nothing. There are a few like season long strands that run through, but it's all about. It started as a YouTube show, and the show on YouTube, or the clips on YouTube, are called Letterkenny Problems. And the idea is that it's a small town in kind of Midwest Canada. It has a very Midwest America look to it, right? Like it's the same thing. And it's just like the town is small, so this is the shit that they deal with. Like it was literally Letterkenny problems, and they still put it at the beginning of every episode. It says there are 5,000 people in Letterkenny. These are their problems, and then the episode starts, and it starts off because they tour now, and they do. It's not quite stand up, and it's not quite skit comedy. It kind of rests in the middle, but they have this quick like banter thing they do in the beginning for like a couple of minutes to intro the show. It's like their cold open, and they're always hilarious. And then they get into the show, and whatever's going on. But like it's a hockey town, so everybody, like there's a couple of hockey players, there's a couple of burnouts that are like, you know, being junkies outside of the gas station. Um, and then you've got Wayne, who just came back in the first season, just came back to town, and he's like the baddest dude in town. And so there's like, if there's not a big like barroom type brawl in every episode, there's a ballroom type brawl in most episodes.
Hmm.
Uh, and they're funny because he never loses. Like that's what happens in the first couple of episodes. It's like he comes back like to kind of claim his title as king of the town, right? He comes back and just beats the shit out of everybody. And then every now and then somebody steps up, they get their ass kicked, and then sometimes they just become part of the group. Um, but it's such a cool show because it kind of just takes place in little chunks. Like there's almost always a scene where they're out in front of their where they're just kind of chilling out in front of their vegetable stand from their farm. You know, there's always a scene in the bar. There's when you have the two hockey players, you know, there's scenes at the game. They don't really waste a lot of time playing hockey, but it'll be in the locker room or talking. And it's just, I mean, it's a funny fucking show. Um, but what's been really cool is that they finally were able to do a spinoff. So the two hockey players, there's a dude on their hockey team named Shoresy. He's a total dick, and you never see his face through all of Letterkenny. You never see his face. If they ever show him on the ice, he's got a dark mask. You can't see who he is. Um, you know, if you watch long enough, you can actually figure out who's playing him, like who the actor is that's playing him. Um, and he's especially a total asshole to the two main hockey players in the show because they're dumb. They're like dumb 20 somethings that are just total morons. And he's always joking about how he's banging their moms. And but what was cool is they decided to do a spin-off with Shoresy. It's short, it's like 6 or 8 episodes. And it's kind of how he left town to go join this kind of older hockey league that they're trying to that he's trying to help the team win because they've been losing. And so he rebuilds the team. And it's interesting. It's actually far more heartfelt than you would think it is based on anything else that I've seen on Letterkenny. But it's really good. You know, I watched it once. I'll watch it again pretty soon. Letterkenny's a show that if you enjoy it, it's really easy to watch again because a lot of the dialogue is fast and snappy, right? So it comes through, you might miss something. So when you watch it the second time, you know, you see it again, you laugh a little harder. Everybody kind of has a different dialect or they mumble a little bit. So some things that you didn't appreciate one time through, you'll appreciate a second time through. So both are great shows. And I recommend them to anybody that likes, I guess, adult humor, which I say for those of us that are completely immature, it's definitely made for, you know, mature audiences, but it's not a mature show. But it's a lot of fun.
I was looking up the show, and I think one thing that's definitely encouraging to a newcomer is that there's only looks like 6 episodes a season, and so that to me,
yeah, they're short for sure.
Are these like half-hour type situations?
Oh yeah, like 20 minutes, like
Yeah.
20. You can burn through a season in a day if you don't have anything going on, like easily.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
wonder
like
if my
does not take long.
Canadian connects are familiar. I did not say Canuck, I said connects. No, I wonder if my Canadian folks, my posse, know about this. But I can see
Yeah.
the appeal. I can see the appeal for sure based on what you described. Um, Going right back to Party of Five for a second, Party of Five appreciation. I was saying in the pre-show that they launched the careers of four people, which of course is Matthew Fox, Lacey Chabert, I can never remember Ned Campbell, and then of course Scott Wolf. But I forgot about Jennifer Love Hewitt too. So five,
Oh yeah. Yep. Yep.
legitimately Party of Five,
Yeah.
happened for and they all went on to do pretty decent shit. Like I would say right now, I guess Matthew's back now.
Yeah.
But
The return of
yeah,
Matthew Fox.
I think the irony is I think Scott Wolf's probably had the most muted career of all of them. And I would say
Hmm.
I would argue that the biggest stars from that show were Nev and Scott, as far as the two kind of focal ones. And then Jennifer Love was, of course, his love interest. Yo, trivia. Did you know that Scott Wolf was actually engaged to Alyssa Milano in 1993? That
I,
is that
I knew he was engaged to somebody, but that's crazy to me.
that's I mean, not to whatever I'll say, I don't care. That's you're a pimp, dude. Like 1993 Alyssa Milano
That's
was
a
a
big
big
that's a
deal,
big pull, dude.
and
That's a
and
good
you
pull.
weren't on Party of Five yet. So props, man. You've been there, done that. You have nothing to prove, homie. You've yeah, king of the mountain, my friend.
Yeah.
All right.
So with that, that's that's all the new stuff, and then we've got our old reliables. I think we're going to skip Lord of the Rings this week.
Yeah,
I definitely need to watch the episode again. I started watching it and I picked a poor time to watch it, so I fell asleep a little in the middle. It from what I saw, it definitely moves the series forward more. There's a few significant moments, but I think I missed some of the development of those moments. So I want to watch it again before we talk about it. And you haven't watched it yet. And
right.
since nobody else cares to show up to our little show anymore, jerks, we'll hold off on that one. We can jump into She-Hulk, which just had its sixth episode, no, it was fifth episode, right?
Let me confirm because I'm
This-
going to the episode. I want to say it's fifth, but let me confirm.
yeah, because
Yeah, fifth episode.
I
Mean,
think
green,
there's
and
eight.
straight according to these genes.
Yeah,
There's nine.
yeah. So I think is there nine? Okay, because
Mhm,
I know we're getting close to starting the back half of the run.
mhm.
Um, and I'm still kind of in the same place. I definitely don't hate the show, and I don't fault anybody for enjoying it, but I would really like to know why they do. Um, the more I watch it, the more the thing that bothers me the most, and it was something that I thought I was going to get over in the first episode, is the CGI for her. It's really bad, especially when she walks. Like when she walks around, it does not look natural at all. And I think maybe the Hulk works better because he lumbers and he's got his own way of walking and all that. When she's moving, she's supposed to, I mean, she's essentially just a big person, right? And so when they do the show, um, you know, they actually have like a 6'5" woman on set for a lot of the shots that they do, so they
Didn't know
can,
that. Wow.
um, so people like have a point of reference on what they're looking at. And yeah, there's just so much of it that still doesn't get me. Like it's a bummer that Andy hasn't been on, because I think from what I've seen, he's enjoying it.
Yeah, but I know that even this last episode that we're about to talk about, or we're talking about, he wasn't that big of a fan. And ironically, like for me, like I actually liked this episode a little better than the other two, primarily because there was more actual legal shit going on. And I actually feel like the case was actually argued effectively. Like it was, I actually felt like, okay, this is finally some legal shit. Like, okay, so you're
And
using keep going.
yeah, I was gonna say, and it did speak to the one complaint that I had before, is that the only thing she's ever done has been a bad lawyer.
Yes.
Like
And you're
things
right.
have kind of fallen into her lap. This is the first time that she made a choice that was, in the course of the show, detrimental to her as a person, but proved her point. Not necessarily in a believable way. Like again, a lot of these things, like in a real courtroom, I don't feel like the lawyer would be like, oh, you had some bad dating experience. Yes, that's admissible in court. But you know what I mean? Like, it's still definitely a stretch for me. Whereas a lot of legal shows, I feel maybe some things get bent, but a lot of the legality of it makes sense. Um, but at the same time, like that was the first like lawyerly thing
Yes.
that I felt like she did.
Exactly. And the irony, of course, is it wasn't even her arguing the case, but at least she
Mhm.
gave her lawyer the ammunition when she said, "Yo, I actually used the name She-Hulk on a dating profile," and
Yep.
was able to prove in court that no, I absolutely used this fucking name. You know, and what I kind of like about it as well is, I'm someone who like identity is a big thing for me. So for me, it's like it's important to own your shit. Like even if you don't necessarily even like what you are, so to speak. Oh, I'm gonna get into a fucking anyway. I'm not whatever. What I'm saying ultimately is I do think on some level I'm leaving out one particular category out, obviously, for obvious reasons. On some level, it's important to actually just own it, because it goes back to like the Jon Snow uh Tyrion thing. It's like, I'm calling you a bastard because that's who the world sees you as, own that shit, wear it like armor, so that way no one can fuck with you, basically. And to
Mhm.
me, it's like, yeah, you can say you're not She-Hulk all you want, but motherfuckers gonna call you She-Hulk. So own that shit, wear it like armor, and it's a part of you. Own it, and I'm big on that. So I liked that aspect of that episode. I actually thought it was the designer guy was pretty funny to me.
Mhm.
Because he totally like, this is a waste of time. Like he was just he reminded me of like the No Cakes woman in The Incredibles. Yeah, at The
Yeah,
Incredibles.
yeah. Yeah.
And so it's cool that they actually have someone who's making. So I'm looking forward to seeing her superhero outfit because I feel like we're gonna see that outfit, the purple whatever
Yeah, yeah.
bodysuit. That's gonna be dope. That I think he gave it to her. And obviously we got the little teaser of
Of
Daredevil at the
Daredevil.
end. So, you know,
So, like I so wish they hadn't done that because this is the first episode that really felt like it was about her. Like, and because this show for me has been such a cameo show, um, like for as much as I want Madison to come back because I think she's fucking awesome, um, like I'm glad she wasn't there. Like this was her episode. It was not again. It wasn't for me. Wasn't a great episode like compared to some of the other ones. I thought it was a weird character turn for the lawyer that went with her assistant to just all of a sudden be like almost kind of giddy-ish where he was so serious before.
oh yes,
Um,
yes, 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 yes. Took me a
like
second.
that was a little bit of a stretch, like the whole Avengers thing. I was like, it's just a little weird. And it's all the little that and maybe that's the problem I have is that it's just a bunch of little things that get to me and turn into a big thing that bother me.
Do you
But
think is there something developing like, is it me? Like, I don't know, maybe I'm just being like male gazy, right? But like when like now that she's established that all these men are mediocre or whatever, like does she have the hots for her fucking lawyer friend? Like or am I projecting here?
the
Like when she
the one
wanted
that went the
they went for drinks afterwards. Yeah. Or
oh
she's supposed to be bi.
I don't know. Like I know in the comics she's straight.
Yeah.
So if they're sticking with the comics like she does, but that's Renee Elise Goldsberry from Hamilton. Like
She's beautiful.
she's beautiful and she is fucking talented. She's on a show on Peacock called Girls Five Eva, which is funny but a little a little weird, but it's funny. Um, and she's insanely talented, Renee Elise Goldsberry.
So
Like,
asshole moment. For a second, I thought Renee Lee's Goldsberry, if I'm saying her name right, I thought she was also on Lord of the Rings. The Queen of
oh,
at
the Queen.
Numenor. Yeah, so I looked them up and realized they're not the same person. But for a second there, I was like, holy shit, like you're just like rocking it right now. But they look pretty similar to me. But maybe I need to look over
Yeah.
side by side. But yeah, so that I like Renee. All I'm saying is I like her character and
Hmm.
she feels like a lawyer to
Well,
me, like
I
legit.
like her. She fits into a good niche because she's at least the no bullshit character.
Yes.
right? Like she's not into the silliness. She doesn't want all the extra shit. She's just a badass. Um, she is, you know, a female lawyer at a big law firm, and she's kicking butt. So, you know, I like her, and I've seen her in enough roles now, especially.
She's 51,
To,
dude.
no, she's not.
I'm looking at it right now, baby. Look, dude, she's 51. She is. I'm sorry. Okay, I don't care. I can't help it. I have to. I have to like. I appreciate beauty. I'm sorry. She is not like 51, dude.
Man. No, she definitely looks younger than me.
Yeah.
You know,
She looks like she's in her
like
30s.
yeah, yeah.
Anyway, props.
I legit thought she was. But she's one of the best parts of Hamilton.
Yeah.
She plays the sister of his wife. Um, and yeah, so
Dude, she
yeah,
was in Ally
there's
McBeal.
no shit.
Yeah, in 43 episodes.
That explains why she's
Yes, in
or
this
that
show.
makes
That's
her a
an
good
Easter
choice for the
egg.
show, and why she plays a good lawyer.
Yeah, there you go. She's really accomplished. She won an NAACP Image Award in 2004 for One Life to Live. Man, she's yeah, and it's Girls Five Eva, like you said. Yep, she's and she's
She's
nominated for
she's
Hollywood Critics.
funny in that because she's so over the top, just like crazy, which is completely different than like everything else she does. She's like a wash. Like the whole point of the show is that they were like a group of five girls that had like a Spice Girls type thing going
Yes.
on, and then they fell apart, and then now they're trying to make their comeback, but they're all out of shape, right, or whatever. Like they're,
Okay,
you
that
know,
I just got goosebumps from you describing that. I want to watch that. That
it's fun. You may or may not like it, but the who's the girl, the other main girl on it? She's an actual singer.
Sarah
Um,
Bareilles.
Sarah Bareilles. She just had something land on Broadway too that was a huge deal.
Yeah,
Um,
this sounds like
Waitress, maybe
too.
maybe she did Waitress. Um, but yeah, I'd say give that one a shot. It's fun.
All right.
You know, it did well in the critical circuits. Like it was
Yes.
nominated a couple places.
Yes.
I think even for an actual Emmy. For me, I didn't think it was quite Emmy worthy, but it was fun. I think the second season is coming out soon too. Um,
So if
yeah,
anything, I think we can thank She-Hulk then for kind of bringing certain talent, up to a wider audience because Elise is not, she is no newcomer. She just hasn't had the
yeah,
exposure to like people like myself.
yeah,
So word up.
yeah,
Oh, one more thing I will
yeah,
say, is that I think I told you in the pre-show as well. So yeah, I when I started She-Hulk, the latest episode, I stopped it and did something else, and then I actually thought about like, do I want to finish this? Like I've never really thought that about any of the Marvel shows. So yeah,
yeah, for
there
sure.
it is. So, but I'm glad I did, and I'm gonna watch it to the end. I really am. But like, yeah, to echo Kevin, yeah, don't be shy. Like, leave a comment. Yes, I'm being a little ridiculous.
Yeah,
Leave a comment on YouTube. Leave a comment on my link. Tell us what you think. Why do you like it?
yeah. Like I said, I really want to know if people are liking She-Hulk. You know, what is it about it that's working for them? And I don't even mean it in a bad way. It's not like why the fuck do you like
Yeah,
this?
don't
It's just like
justify it. We also
yeah,
understand.
it's like just because I don't or I'm not totally fired up about it doesn't mean somebody else can't be. But I'm curious to see what it is that is clicking in some people's brains that's not clicking in mine.
And on the same
Uh,
token, let's go back to Empire for a second. If you love Empire, same thing, man. Tell us what you
yeah,
love about Empire. It's a cult classic. So clearly, I'm gonna call some motherfuckers out. Ari, if you're
hmm,
watching, or Tom, if you're watching, tell us. Mike Nilsson, I know you're from Chicago. You might like Empire. Tell us. Eric, tell me. Okay, that's enough. But yeah, just let us know.
yeah, it'd be cool. Um, yeah, so with She-Hulk, I mean, I actually don't know it's coming up in the next episode. I don't know if we get Daredevil yet. Um, but it'll be interesting when we do. Um, but with only 4 episodes to go, he's probably coming up pretty soon. They hyped him up a lot.
They really
I
did.
I don't know if he's just going to show up as Matt Murdock for a while and then show up as Daredevil. The interesting thing is all the news out there right now is saying that this is not the Netflix Daredevil.
Which is really weird to me because what does that mean exactly? Like, does that mean that it's a legitimately like the Netflix Daredevil is a different universe? Is that what they're implying?
That's well, and I need to find the article and read it because they're all
Daredevil
quoting
Reborn.
Charlie Cox as saying it. Um, and I don't know. Number one, I don't know what the exact quote was, and I know that in today's media, if one person takes and runs with an idea like that, then they're all going to follow suit because that's the hot topic, right? But it doesn't necessarily mean it's true.
Right.
So I'd really like to see what his actual quote was on that because I'm not sure. I'm hoping that I don't mind if they take his Daredevil and lighten it up for the MCU because that's what I was expecting. It would be a bummer if it was just a full reboot.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, or not a reboot, but just different universe. But I don't know if you can't get Foggy back, if you can't get what's her name back,
I know you're talking about.
you're kind of missing a couple key components. I don't know if you get Jessica Henwick back. I know she was technically an Iron Fist most of the time, but I thought she showed up in the last season of Daredevil. I know she turned something else down from Marvel because she was like, "No, I want to come back as my character from."
Yes.
Which I love. I love. She was absolutely the best part of Iron Fist. So I'd love to see her come back. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I hope. Yeah, I hope it's not a complete reboot and just throws everything else out the window. But at the same time, if you don't do that, you're relying on everybody to go back and watch the Netflix shows.
Which is on Disney Plus though. So I feel like if it's
It
on,
is, yeah.
but it's a lot to watch, right? That's the thing.
Yeah. And it's different. Like it's really different than the rest of
Yeah.
the MCU because of the darkness that it has.
I guess that makes sense.
So we shall see. But I'm excited. I like Charlie Cox. I loved his appearance in No Way Home, so that was great.
Yes.
So we'll see what it does. And that brings us to Game of Thrones, which has been steamrolling. I will say, while this episode was interesting, it wasn't my favorite episode of the season so far. It wasn't like it didn't kill the season for me or anything like that. It's not like season 8, where you're just like, what the fuck? It just had a different feel to it. It was definitely a slower, more politically charged episode and the things that were happening in there. But yeah, it was definitely interesting to see the Damon that I didn't think we were going to see. He came back feeling to me a little broken. Like I know there was some strategy in what he was doing and that, but like he was a little chaotic. He was drinking a lot, like he was kind of a mess. So yeah, I don't know. What vibe did you get from him in this one? Because he didn't feel like the dude that just went out and fucking kicked ass like an episode ago.
You're right. Yeah, you bring up a really good point because while I definitely was wondering why you're like drinking yourself into a stupor and then being dragged into Viserys's like throne room, getting your ass kicked and just like not fighting back and just being lame. Like, I don't know. Like chaotic is the right word, because he is your classic, here come the groans, your classic ENTP. And they are chaotic motherfuckers, like Loki. So because they are emotional, like they're logical, but they're emotional too. And he clearly does have real feelings for Rhaenyra. I don't know like what those feelings are. They're confusing, but there is something there. And I also am not sure if he's trying to use her to get to the throne, or if he legitimately sees her as like, you know, he sees kinship, as in like, which is weird as fuck for me. I just said that, but you know what I mean? Like they're similar spirits, and that's why they vibe. But it's probably both. I'm reading this abstract, and the abstract says that, when they finally like get to the point where their attraction is going to be consummated, he abandons her before it happens. So
Mm-hmm.
I guess what the official word is, they didn't do it, but
Yeah,
it was
that's
ambiguous
the
as fuck.
general opinion I've seen around like the internet, is that
Yeah.
he didn't,
And
you
why
know.
he didn't do it, was it guilt, like what, like why did, or was it because he couldn't get it up, like I don't know
You
what
know
happened.
what? I saw somebody made the point, and I think it's probably right, that everything was going fine because he was in control. But she moved in and started coming at him, and that's when he backed off. Like the second he didn't have control of the situation, as soon as she took control of the situation, that's when
I love that.
yeah, like I didn't see it that way when I saw it, but like reading that, I was like, okay, that
I love
makes
that.
sense to me.
I love that
So
because he was in control up until that point, and that's the thing. Like once she realized that she actually had control, then we see what happens with Sir Kristen. Which, by the way, and I said it in the pre-show, and I'll say it now. One of the things, like I feel like this particular episode was a little uncomfortable for several reasons. First of all, I look at Queen Alicent now, and
mhm.
Rhaenyra. I'm sorry, I look at them as little girls. I do. So like when you're watching like Viserys basically like use Queen Alicent as like his sex doll, basically, shit was weird, man. Like, like you're just like seeing her stare off into space. I think at one point he even like moves her
Yeah,
head
he
to like
brings her
look.
face back,
Oh my
because
god.
and I think with him, like I don't think he quite gets it, right? So because they connected so much before they got married, before they did everything, before he chose her, like that's actually the reason that he chose her, is because they had a connection. So I'm sure part of him thinks there's more there than there is, and that's the other thing too. Like he's not the worst dude.
No.
Like, and so if you think about the world that they're in, if a king marries a woman, she's subservient to him, right? Like he's the king, he owns her, right? So he's doing the best that he can in that world. Like he's not trying to be bad to her. Like I can't see him like actively like physically
No.
doing what he would consider to be rape, right? Like it wouldn't be that extreme, but to a degree, I mean, that's still kind of what he's doing, right? I mean, she's not into it. She
No.
knows I mean, she knows what she's doing. Like she knows the situation that she's in, and she's going along with it, and that's definitely um one of those things when you get into to talking about the logistics of something like sexual assault, that it, if you were okay with it, does it not become sexual assault anymore? But it still kind of is, right? Like if you don't feel like you have the power to not do it, then
You
even
couldn't
if
give
you,
consent. Exactly.
yeah,
It
so
goes back to Sir Kristen too. So it's like I was saying, in before, like if I was, but it's just such a role reversal, which in a way is kind of cool that like the most notorious show for violence against women, right, is actually now flipping things on its head with Kristen and Rhaenyra. Because like one thing I just thought was hilarious and so timeless is how when someone has like when their pilot light has been turned on, you know, she's gotta put that shit out. So she gets home
mhm.
and like doesn't even bother hiding the fact that she snuck out. And then he's like, "What the fuck?" And then all of a sudden she's like, fucking with him, like grabs his helmet.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I immediately knew what was
Oh
in
yeah, for
store,
sure.
like right
I
away.
was
Like,
I was expecting this an episode or two ago, not necessarily like for it to happen yet, but just that these two were gonna bang at
interesting.
some point. Yeah, like
Yeah, no, I saw them as platonic. I really did. I really did. So when it happened, and it was like I personally don't know. Like I don't know. I mean, I'm sure on some level he was like fine, like like he didn't mind per se. But at the same time, it's like, did he have a choice? Like, if he said no, right? She might get pissed off and like been like fuck him, or she could have even said he tried to rape me. Like I'm just, oh, I can
Right,
understand
right,
that.
right.
But like I'm saying, she could have him fucked up. And also to your point, like if he went and told Viserys this is what she tried to do, he could be mad at him, how dare you make that vile accusation, off with his head, and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
like go like yell at her anyways after his head's like on a spike. So he's fucked either way. So it was kind of like what you were saying in the show, like what is the right decision in this world? And my thing is like the right
Yeah.
decision is the one that keeps you alive. That is like
It's true.
that's what you do in Game of Thrones. It's a fucking game, and the game is to stay fucking alive. Um, man, I was gonna say something and it's gone, but I'll just say something else. Otto, like poor Otto, man, like, because like Rhaenyra is like a master manipulator. Like she legitimately is like, okay, fine, Dad, if you're gonna like, yell at me and make me feel bad, then what about your fucking boy? Like look at his angles, man. Like you don't trust him. I mean, like you shouldn't trust him. Like she just legitimately, and that was actually kind of smart because it was him who got her in trouble. So actually, now I don't feel bad anymore. Fuck Otto. Like she's like, that happened right on the show. Like, no, it was tit for tat, no pun intended. Like she legitimately was like, if you're gonna fuck me, I'm gonna fuck you, and she did. So Rhaenyra is royal, dude. Like you do not fuck with her. Like she
Hmm.
deserves to be on that throne. She is a smart, like you were talking about how Cersei was like smart. So is Rhaenyra.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
props for that.
For sure. I think the one thing that made me laugh was, I think I posted it as soon as I was, or texted you guys as soon as I was watching it, was this poor dude trying to get his armor off. He's like, "Oh, you want to bang? Give me 45 minutes. I gotta fucking like." I was like, "Jesus Christ, dude! Like that shit better be good for the both of
Right?
them by the time that's done." It's interesting to note that this episode was directed by a woman.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Claire Killing.
I, yeah, I don't know if she was specifically chosen because of the content of the episode, but I know that in the interviews that I've seen, she took it very seriously. Um, they definitely, I think, in a different interview, it's not the one I don't think in the post show, um, but she talks about how there's a difference between when a love scene's filmed by a male director and a female director. You can just tell they do different things. Um, And there's another quote that I saw from the girl that plays Rhaenyra,
Yes.
where she was talking about how between her and uh, Matt Smith, they were fine. Like for the scenes that they did, they had the coaches, they worked together, they were close enough with each other that they were fine. But like looking around the set because of where they were, she's like, there were people in 69 for like 6
12
hours.
hours.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And you're like, oh yeah, that would be weird. Like it'd be harder to be a background actor in that scene. Part of me thinks they should have just hired porn stars,
Right?
just
To be right at home.
people that have worked together, that know each other, that are familiar with this type of work. Because if you're just putting regular actors in there, that's a stretch. Like that's
Too
somebody that's
much.
trying to make it. And um it's weird.
Yeah,
So
I think you're right though. I think for example, like I think if a man had directed it, there'd be just like so much boobery everywhere, right? And I
yeah,
think with
and there
this
was
one,
none. There
none,
was none.
none. So I think that
um
was also, I think, deliberate, and I think it was tasteful.
yeah.
I remember what I was going to say now. Yeah, I'm going to go there. So one of the things that I felt was also interesting was, the whole concept of marriage. Because I'm at that age now where I'm seeing a lot of people. There's many different lanes, right? Some people get married in their 20s, some people get married in their 30s, some people just don't get married, right? I was one of them. And, so I'm looking around and I'm seeing lots of like, people are making making choices. Like, I don't know if I want to be married anymore or whatever. Like, maybe this wasn't like for me. Maybe you got married for the wrong reasons, right? So as an outsider, I've always looked at that institution like, wow, what a big commitment. And I've been part of weddings. I've been the best man in a wedding where that shit lasted like what, 4 years maybe. And that shit, like when I say it went bad, like it went bad. There's nothing left. Scorched earth, fucking toxic Avenger land. Like it's bad. So anyway, um, so when you compare the two, right? You've got Viserys and Alicent. They're married, okay? But I'm sorry, dude, that does not look fun. Whereas you've got
No.
Rhaenyra and Daemon, and they're like, it's so not like traditional, yet they're having like the time of their lives, like, dirty dancing, like they're loving it. And then Kristen and her are having this like intimate, like passionate situation. So, and then even Damon says, like, marriage is like whatever, you can still fuck whoever you want, basically. Like, that's some real crazy commentary. And especially coming from, I don't know. I wonder what kind of dialogue that could spur. Uh, one of the things I've also thought about is how, and this is a good thing in my opinion, how I think as women in society have had more choices now. Like I think back in the day, like the Don Draper days, the man could just cheat all damn day, but she's not going to leave because she's a housewife and she doesn't have a job, so she's going to like basically just stick with the guy. But as women have now become more independent, they don't have to put up with some bullshit in a marriage and can decide to just leave or whatever, or at least makes it easier, and also not be so forced about living for other people, like worrying about what other people will think, like going, I just need to like do what I need to do to like be the housewife, have the kids, whatever. It's like, no, let me actually do what's right for me. Let me go after someone who I actually like. We have chemistry. It's not because it's practical. So I don't know. I just thought that I thought good questions were asked of that episode. And Alicent, I feel for her right now. I mean, your job is basically to be a hole for Viserys as well. I said that. And then clean his sores more gently than like his assistants. Like that's your job. And then advise him when he's acting a fool. Like, really? And then you lost your best friend in the process. Although it looks like they're kind of reconciliating now, which is good. Um, yeah, not the most exciting episode, but I think it was maybe the most disturbing and thought-provoking episode we've seen so far.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot in it. And I know tomorrow night's episode is the last one with the young girls, with the two actresses. So I'm really curious to see how that blows up, because there's obviously going to be at least a few years jump to make that seem kind of reasonable. And the son, so the new prince, right, who is technically not the heir because she's been named the heir, he's going to have to be old enough to be a bit of a shit, like to be making a run at the throne. So it's definitely going to get interesting. I don't remember. I know I watched the upcoming like next episode bits, and I don't remember what they are, which is good actually. I kind of like going in blind, because it just feels like, then I'm just surprised by everything that's happening. But I can't say it enough. This is Game of Thrones back to being Game of Thrones. Like we know we had problems at the end of the original series, but this is legit like Game of Thrones.
So a couple of things I want to mention as well, because we're in the information age, is that a guy named Miguel Sapochnik, that sounds right, Miguel
Yeah.
Sapochnik, he directed the Battle of the Bastards episode. Okay.
Yep.
He is one of the two showrunners of the show. So
He's
that's
leaving.
why. What's that?
He's leaving.
Oh no, really?
Yeah. He is leaving after season 1, because he's burnt out.
Okay, but
He
he's going to be
has
executive producer, right? Yep.
He's going to be an EP. He's not going to be
Yeah.
involved with the show as much, but he did sign an exclusive deal with HBO. So it's not like it was a bad breakup or anything. He help them get this show
off the ground.
going. And then it seems like he's done his thing. So,
But I just bring him up because I feel like that's part of why I think the show has been so good so far, because that episode, Battle of the Bastards, was, I think it was a fucking
oh,
it
so
was
good.
so good. And I think that episode, that's the episode was Zigzag. I think that it starts with fucking Rickon.
Yeah.
Oh man. But he's gonna direct episode 6 and 7. So I think we've got some great stuff in store. So yes, like you said, Game of Thrones is back.
For
So,
sure. For sure. I'm excited. And, you know, it actually makes me more excited for the spin-off stuff that they're working on too. Like if this one was a little iffy, I'd be worried about the Jon Snow spin-off. I'd be worried about some of the other stuff. But I think they probably took enough of the notes um, from what people hated at the end of Game of Thrones to be like, yeah, if we know what we've got, we should do what we know we've got. Right. Because that was their biggest thing is they rushed the end of that show and you felt it. So yeah, so I'm excited. We'll see how it goes. And with that, I think we've talked about everything we have, unless you've got a secret, um, secret show in your pocket. I think we're good.
yeah, no, I do think we're good. And yeah, no, it's funny because like I think at one point I was considering like maybe we hold off on a show and we wait for
Mm-hmm.
the other guys to come back. But then I was like, nah, I think we have something to talk about. We can keep the momentum going. And sometimes short and sweet can be substantial, sometimes less is,
Yeah.
you know, and
Yep.
we love the fact that people are becoming a bit more interactive and vocal, and yeah, it's fun. So no, I think we made the right call.
I think so too. I think we did. I think we made a decent episode. We talked about some stuff that we might not have talked about in another episode. Focused on the '90s a little bit, which was really cool. And yeah. So with that, if you're watching, don't forget to like and subscribe. Leave comments. There's so many things we need comments about. We need our She-Hulk comments. We need our '90s comments. Our Empire Records comments. For sure. So let us know what you think. If you're wondering if either of us have hair under our hats, the answer is yes and no. But yeah, leave the comments, ask the questions, whatever. Like and subscribe. We've been kind of watching the show growth lately, and it's moving up little notches. So if you know somebody that hasn't watched, send it over to them. We'd love to have some new viewers. And yeah, with that, we will see you next week with hopefully a few more cast members.
For a while. So my plan, actually, I think it could be fun, is I really want to get into Empire Records, but I also think that it leads to a good kind of general conversation about like 90s films that are focused on like pop culture or teendom, that kind of thing, because
Mm-hmm.
it all kicked off with Can't Hardly Wait. I mean, I don't know who brought it up, but someone did, and that just opened up a whole firestorm. And I think in that conversation someone had mentioned Empire Records, and you guys are like, what the fuck, like that's a giant hole in your like viewing history. And I'm
Yeah.
like, fine. So I watch it, and it's funny, I definitely have like opinions on it, but one thing I've definitely noticed is that I've had different eras of life, right? And Chicago is definitely like, there's that crew of people that I know from Chicago are like, they are definitely of a certain kind of like mindset and life experience, and they're the ones who responded to when I posted that link. Like it was Ari and it was
Mm-hmm.
Mom, and like so it figures that they would be into it. And then another guy that I know was like damn the man, you know, and I know that he's a bit. So anyway, I definitely it's a mindset, and that's what got me thinking about She-Hulk. I was like, you know what? It's a mindset, it's a vibe, and that and you either get it or you fucking don't. And so I can respect that. But at the same time, I'm just kind of like sociologically speaking, maybe what it is like, okay, so if you get like a vibe, then cool, but don't shit on people for not getting it. That's all I'm saying. Like let's keep the peace on both sides. So if you get She-Hulk, awesome. Don't so that's why I feel like calling people who don't like She-Hulk automatically incels or haters or whatever. I don't think that's the way to go at all, honestly. All it
Yeah,
does is vision
I
creators.
know it's for some people. Like I get it. I just I've been struggling, man. I
Dude,
really been struggling with it.
I almost didn't bother watching it today. Like I literally
Yeah.
was like I started it and I was like halfway through. I turned it off and I actually considered not finishing. That's like that's crazy, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.